All right. Welcome everybody to the 7th episode of Dell Technologies Channel Juice Partner Trainings. This week is definitely going to be one of my favorites that we've had so far. It's going to be on Kubernetes and Agile application protection. And it was helped organized today by Dion, who's our regional channel manager for data protection, supporting our partner community. And then she helped organize one of the, what I believe the smartest people in our company, and Amit Kazmarek's on the line today to take us through how this all works. So again, as a reminder, these channel juice trainings are a way for us to stay, for us to provide our partners the opportunity to stay up to speed on the latest and greatest from Dell Technologies. What it is not is something that's supposed to go into the speeds and feeds, get super technical. We really want to help you guys have business level conversations with your customers about technology and solving problems that are relevant to them from a business level conversation. And so with that in mind, we're seeing a lot of businesses continue to invest in a DevOps strategy. And this includes Kubernetes and other tools to provide a platform for cloud native processing. And this ends up leading to a lot of questions being asked, okay, if that's the case, like how can we ensure business continuity and resiliency in the face of incidences coming up? And now we're starting to see so many different ways that threats can come in, whether it's a change due to COVID or cyber recovery and threats coming in from ransomware, or a traditional site going down due to an earthquake or a fire. Before I kick it off to Dion, just quick reminder, everyone make sure to take notes. We're gonna have 3 bonus questions coming out after this via email. The first person to respond to those with all 3 questions correct is gonna go ahead and get a Dell Technologies North Face backpack. So thank you guys for taking notes and paying attention there. And outside of that, it's gonna be at a quick, efficient, about 20 minutes of content. We'll finish by 11:30 here. And thank you for joining. So with that, Dion, I'll kick it over to you. Anything to add? And then we'll get it over to Emmett.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Buck. No, not much to add. You hit it on the head in terms of an introduction. But just in case we have some new folks on the call, my name is Dion Madden. I am the Dell Data Protection Channel Manager for the West. Thank you all for joining us today. A couple weeks ago, we had the opportunity to come on and talk about our cyber recovery solution, which is a major focus area for our business unit. But as Buck mentioned, as we continue to innovate and support our customers as they transform their environments, our partnership with VMware being first and best, and the integration that we have with their technology is also a huge differentiator for us. And so, Emmett's going to go through, again, the Kubernetes and Agile application protection today. I hope you guys enjoy it. I would agree with you, Buck. Emmett is definitely probably one of the smartest people in our company. And so it's a great treat to have him on the call today. So Emmett, whenever you're ready.
All right. Can you guys hear me okay?
Can hear you great.
For whatever reason, the audio is kind of choppy on my end. So if there is an issue, just let me know here and I can cut it over to the computer audio and microphone if the need be. All right. So I appreciate everyone taking the time today to jump on the call and to go through this. A little bit of background on myself. I've been with the organization since the Data Domain acquisition and have done a number of different roles. Prior to my current role, I was part of our global technology office and focused in on our vision and strategy for our data protection portfolio. Recently, I took on some additional responsibilities. VP of pre-sales for global data protection, running as his global director of pre-sales strategy on the DPS side of the house. So still doing a lot from a roadmap strategy, where we're at and where we're going, but then also taking on a bunch more responsibilities there. So with that in mind, we're really going to just kind of jump right into it. Feel free to ask questions here as we go through it. You can raise them up in chat. I will pause and go through them, and we'll open it up for a general Q&A here as well. So, next generation protection for Kubernetes. Before we go into what we've done and the technology aspects of it, I think it's important to kind of take a step back and just think about why it is we want to protect Kubernetes in the first place. If I think about the pod world we're in now, and infrastructure as a service, platform as a service, and containers as a service, I really like to think of those as a metaphor for a house. In the IaaS world, I show up, my foundation's already been poured for me, and I've got all my materials. I got my drywall, I've got my lumber, I've got my bricks, I got my shingles, and I take those materials and I go and build my house. Platform as a service, my house is already built and I just move right in. Containers as a service, I have a shell of a house. Every day I'm picking out what the floor plan of that house is, what the colors of the walls are, what the cabinets look like, and it's tear up, tear down. And that's how containers had been in this stateless world. But what is happening now is, as organizations are going through their digital transformation and their application rationalization projects, what's happening is they're taking applications now and they're containerizing them. And so in the same metaphor for a house here, they're still picking out every day, tear up, tear down, but inside these houses, they've got a file cabinet. And every day they're adding more and more and more and more to that. And they need to have the capability now to be able to revert back to yesterday, 3 days ago, 4 days ago, 5 days ago. And they don't just need that application consistent copy, but they also need what the point in time of that house and what it looked like for where that file cabinet was at as well. So they need both the app consistent and the crash consistent. And they need to approach this in a way that's completely different than how they would approach protecting IaaS and PaaS, because it is a holistic, different opportunity and a different methodology out there as a whole. So I'm going to kind of walk you guys through this. The real big piece around this that's driving it is this movement of containers from being stateless to stateful as applications are becoming containerized. But there's also a need out there from just a traditional side of the house, right? A disaster recovery, being able to provide failover, rebuild, restore, recover for the clusters and for the persistent volumes. From a compliancy standpoint here, for a cyber protection aspect against data loss, corruption, archival retention. And then we're also seeing it being leveraged more and more for the copy reuse side of things. If we think about the early days of virtualization, back then, customers told us, I don't need an image level protection. I don't need a crash consistent copy of my VMs. Something happens, I'll just rebuild it. That's fine when you have 20 VMs, but when you have 2,500, it's a whole different story. And as organizations now are growing their Kubernetes environments and it's really taking off, the ability to leverage your protection instances to be able to use it for copy reuse and enabling DevOps individuals and administrators to use their native tools within Kubernetes to initiate restores and recovery for test and data migration purposes is being leveraged more and more here. So when you look at what we've done with our technology is we actually developed this working hand in hand with the Valero team at VMware. Valero is the rebranding of the Haptio acquisition that VMware made that brought 2 of the 3 Kubernetes founders into VMware. Now, Valero on its own is an open source product. It allows for the enablement of protecting Kubernetes instances. However, since it is an open source product, it does have limitations. For example, it's single streamed and single threaded. Another example of the limitation is that it only allows customers to write to an object storage bucket. So by working with Valero, we were able to take a lot of their components and parts and really embed it into our modern data protection platform. And with that, what we're able to do now is go out and actually discover Kubernetes instances and then apply a protection lifecycle policy to them based on creating a copy every 4 hours, retaining it for 30 days, and then tearing it out potentially to a lower cost target. With these policies then that you put in place, it orchestrates the governance of creating those copies and maintaining them based upon what you've dictated and put in place, and also enabling now through our UI orchestrated recovery. The other aspect of what we've done here is enabled it to be able to address enterprise grade scale and performance with efficiency and flexibility. So customers have the option today to write it now to the deduplication target of their choice with us, being able to leverage a backend data domain, a data domain virtual instance, an IDPA, or our X400 appliance. And later this year, you'll see us open up the capability of being able to write it direct to object as well here. The other big aspect was being able to provide not just the crash consistent copy here of the Kubernetes environment, but also the app consistent copy. Being able to provide app consistent copies for MySQL, MongoDB, Postgres, Cassandra. And the solution, it was designed to be able to protect Kubernetes workloads on-prem or in the cloud. And with our upcoming June release here, you're going to be able to protect Kubernetes instances up in AWS. In fact, we're going to enable capabilities there to do that without even having to deploy our instance as a service up in the cloud. Some really cool things that are happening there. Azure support will then be coming on board here in September, and GCP in the December release. And from an enterprise grade scale and performance, what we did with integrating in with Valero is take that single stream capabilities and be able to really increase it dramatically, going up to over 500 streams when we're protecting Kubernetes resources. And we're also leveraging our source side deduplication IP, leveraging our boost protocol to shrink that data down before we move it across the wire. And then of course, allowing the ability to land it then on that global deduplication target out there. Now, when we built this integration, we did it from the ground up, designed around integrating in directly with Kubernetes. So it's built on top of the Kubernetes APIs, which allows us to enable the Kubernetes developers and administrators to use kube control to initiate their own backups and restores through the native tool that they live in and day out. The other key thing that we did with this from a design principle is we designed it to be able to protect Kubernetes resources across the board. This isn't just for PKS or for Tanzu Kubernetes services. This is designed to protect the Kubernetes distros that are out there across the board. The dependency that is required here is that those Kubernetes distros support the CSI driver and the CSI snapshotter. As long as they support those capabilities, we're going to be able to protect them. So for example, OpenShift with their 4.4 release is planning to support the CSI snapshotter in that June GA for OpenShift 4.4. As soon as that happens, we'll be able to protect those OpenShift resources. Now, this isn't a sidecar. It's an inherent feature within our platform. And, we're not doing any sort of, bash command to a proxy that then gets swept and brought into our environment. This is truly designed to provide protection with node affinity across the board for our customers out there. So when you look at this and what's happening from a workflow standpoint is you log into our PowerProtect UI and you select the asset that you want to protect. You'd select Kubernetes as the instance that you want to protect. You put in the IP address and the credentials, and then it's going to go out and automatically discover those Kubernetes instances out there. And it's using those native Kubernetes APIs. Again, enabling the Kubernetes developer to use kubectl, their native tools that they live in on a daily basis, to do their own on-demand backups and restores. Now, as part of this install package, we're actually installing the Valero namespace as part of our implementation and part of the protection install here. So the real crucial thing with this is that customers don't need to maintain Valero outside of this solution. They don't have to maintain it separately. They don't have to upgrade it separately. We handle all of those components. We handle the updates as part of our upgrades, and it allows for that really seamless integration there. And that really is critical around how we design the solution working with Valero to embed it in here. Now, the other pieces here, you see that the data domain writer plugin, well, that's our Boost plugin. That's what's allowing us now the capability of doing that source side dedupe and shrinking that data set down before we even move it across the wire. And we'd also then be installing the application consistent plugin, be that MySQL or Mongo or whatever it is that we need to install with that to provide that protection for the instance out there. From there, we also are putting in place not just controllers, but data movers. And the ability here with the controller and the data movers allows us the capability to really accelerate and increase those streams so that we're not bottlenecked by a single stream, but we're able to go up to over 500 here. And then with that, you're able to choose to land it on, a data domain, an IDPA, a data domain virtual instance, or an X400. And later this year, as I mentioned as well, you'll have the option to send it direct to an S3 target. We prefer that to be ECS, but listen, we know it's a multi-cloud world. So if that ends up being AWS infrequent access, if it ends up being blob storage, whatever it is that a customer chooses, they'll have that flexibility. And the other really cool aspect here is what we're doing with the VMware integration. So now with vSphere 7.0 and the ability to deploy Kubernetes instances in your private cloud, customers would be able to take advantage of our native vSphere plugin within vSphere to orchestrate this control, but also what we have coming with Tanzu Mission Control with our co-development efforts with VMware as well. So let's take a look at what's coming here with VMware and Tanzu for those who may or may not be aware. Now, VMware's on this journey here of bringing the world of the IT developer and the IT operator together in one common plane. And the real end goal here is to be able to enable the building, the running, and the managing of multi-cloud, multi-cluster, and multi-team in this single control plane. Now, the first iteration of this came, as I mentioned earlier, with vSphere 7.0. With the introduction now of being able to deploy and run your Kubernetes instances in your private cloud environment and run them on vSphere, the next iteration of this and the expansion of this brings Tanzu Mission Control to life. So targeted for the second half of this year, Tanzu Mission Control is going to integrate in using APIs into that multi-public cloud world and being able to attach multi-clusters into it as well. So when we double click on this and look at really what's going on under the covers within Tanzu Mission Control now, customers are going to have the ability to be able to provision their clusters and do cluster lifecycle management across their private cloud on vSphere, across AWS, Azure, GCP, and VMware Cloud. They're going to be able to set up identity and access, security and configuration, audit and compliance, and they're also going to be able to attach additional Kubernetes into Tanzu Mission Control, attaching in OpenShift or Rancher or GKS or AKS. And where I'm have the most concern is on the data protection aspect here. And so what they are doing with our co-development efforts is actually integrating in our technology into Tanzu Mission Control. Now, customers out there that don't have our software, aren't eligible for our software, aren't enabled for our software, they'll still be able to leverage Valero within Tanzu Mission Control. But as I mentioned earlier, you're going to have that single stream limitation and only be able to write it to an object storage target. By leveraging our technology embedded in here, though, they're going to be able to take advantage of that source side deduplication, the ability to have up to 500 streams, and to land it on that global deduplication target. In addition to that, they're also now going to be able to enable protection across the rest of their applications and their VMware environment as well. So when we look at what's going on here, the code is actually getting integrated in and embedded into TMC as an extension of Tanzu Mission Control, being able to initiate your backups and restores directly out of Mission Control, and be able to have that synchronous integration from a policy standpoint here as well. So when you look at how this is going to come together and what this is going to actually look like, within the mission control, you can see the different clusters that you've provisioned out there across vSphere or AWS or VMC, Azure or GCP. You've got the health of the systems that exist out there. And now you're able to administer your data protection capabilities directly through here as well. So really bringing it full circle in this integration here across the board. So from a high level, I know that was a lot to go through, but I want to open it up now for questions and really, answer anything you guys may have, and we can go deeper. But wanted to give that high level overview and update as to what we're doing and where we're at from a Kubernetes protection side. Daniel, I think you're on mute.
Hey, simple question, Emmett. I'm a salesperson, so having sold software for a number of years for Cisco and Sunsoft, but I'm the account manager on Intermedia. And so, we're hosting a DevOps discussion with them, hopefully getting on the calendar next week. And can I borrow your mind for that call? I know we've got folks that are from our solution center, whatever Kubernetes team, but all the stuff you just talked about is kind of apropos to this customer trying to figure out how do they engage Kubernetes on a VMware stack, right? Because they're a VMware customer today, Intermedia. And then how do they extend the capability to all their DevOps teams? They're like sandboxing right now. We're trying to get them compelled to go to a VMware stack, continue on with Kubernetes running on it. And some of the things that you guys did with Current Octarine or something like that, Octarine, you guys just announced, right? Is all relevant. So can I borrow you or someone on your team to join in our discussion?
It's going to come down to what my schedule availability is. Why don't we sync up offline? I'll make sure that you get my contact information here. Well, it's actually pretty easy. It's my first name dot last name at Dell. So
yeah, I clipped you. So.
Oh, perfect. Excellent. Reach out. If I can't help you, I've got a number of different technical resources that I can make available. We actually have a team that's focused in on the VMware partnership. They're dual badged with DPS and with VMware. So that's another resource we can tap in if we need to.
Yeah, and not to monopolize, guys, but for me, from where we're sitting, we got a VMware team, we got a Dell team, and I'm trying to make sure that I play nice with my VMware team without over leading their activities. But I feel like I want to lead at least professional services engagement to define not only the VMware stack that we're deploying in Kubernetes stack, but then you guys, as most people on this call probably realize, everything else is sold behind it. So it drags all of the other infrastructure. It drags server storage and networking right behind it. So that's why I want to lead from a Dell perspective and not have it siloed in just a VMware discussion. Though for everybody, I think all these discussions should be led by someone that understands the VMware stack and Kubernetes stack, right? So anyway, comment. So looking forward to your help.
Looking forward to working with you.
Cool.
So Amit, I have a question. First of all, great job. Thank you for taking us through that. Help me understand if we're seeing customers go towards DevOps, right? It's been a buzzword now for at least 3 or 4 years. And a lot of that now is in association with containers, right? Like DevOps containers, that type of mindset. What are the biggest challenges that you're currently seeing with legacy backup strategies in a container-based world?
Oh, that's a great question. If you think about a container as the next iteration of virtualization, right? If we kind of walk back and look at, what virtualization did for server environments was being able to abstract out the application, the operating system from the underlying server itself. What containers allow us to do now is take it even one step further and go even more granular. And this is where you get the whole concepts of microservices and being able to spin up specific pieces that you need, specific containers that you need when you need it, and spin them down. It's very powerful in that area, but at the same time, it becomes much more complex. That's why you need Kubernetes. Doesn't matter the different distributor out there, they all have their different merits in different ways, but The Kubernetes as a whole allows you to now actually orchestrate and manage your container environment. But just like when we went from physical servers to virtual machines, the protection methodologies had to shift. You know, you could try and put a guest agent out there on every single VM, but that becomes a management nightmare. And so the same is true for Kubernetes and containers. You can't approach it in the same methodology that you had previously. You need to take a different approach. And the same thing is true, you know, when you're protecting IaaS versus PaaS, right? It's a different approach there in how you go about the process as a whole.
That's great. I think the efficiencies that you mentioned and being able to do it, it actually jumped out at me during your presentation, that the Tanzu mission control, and even that quick screenshot that you had of the console was pretty interesting. And you could really see the simplicity behind it and the ease of management and deployment that software brings to it end user.
Well, and it's very interesting in that side too. You know, we understand our customers are on this digital transformation journey, right? And as a result of this, it's not a cloud first approach, it's a cloud smart approach. And they're going through and they're looking at their applications and they're determining which ones make the most sense to go and actually do a lift and shift, which ones make sense to completely rewrite and refactor to be cloud native, and which ones make sense to re-platform and containerize. And with the introduction of what VMware is doing and bringing Tanzu Kubernetes services and then Tanzu Mission Control as a control plane out here to add in multiple different Kubernetes distros, what you're really going to see now is an acceleration of this digital transformation, because they're making it easier and simpler for organizations to start going down this path and having one common plane there. That was always really the challenge from a management aspect, is your DevOps guys would be off doing one thing, and then you have a whole, your other team going and doing something else here. So it really starts to bring these worlds together into one. And you know, the completion of the VMware Cloud Foundation there with this really just kind of helps to tie it all together.
So who else
are
out
there any other?
Yeah, who else out there has questions? I think this is a good opportunity. Are you guys seeing your customers move towards a Kubernetes type deployment of platforms? What are you guys seeing out there?
To not monopolize the conversation, you know, for about 4 years, Box, my biggest customer, had moved to Kubernetes and went with an open source release of it, and just went full head hog into it, I guess, running on top of the CentOS OS environment. I'm not sure what that means, but that's kind of what was going on. And then now, you know, again, Intermedia as a customer saying, you know, boy, this whole, you know, VMware virtualization thing's been working for us for a while, but getting to workload centric compute, and that's kind of what Kubernetes is, which is moving from a virtualized stack to a workload centric, which is much more microservices granular. I think the whole market's moving that way. They're trying to do it for free. So everyone just be mindful, you know, the escape from VM, the anger is the same anger we had 10 years ago with Oracle, right? Everybody says, shit, I don't want to do Oracle anymore. And so with VMware taking on Kubernetes, the risk for them is, well, how much is it going to cost me in licensing fee to do what I do today in open source? And what we're saying to them is, hey, get away from GitHubbing and stuff, get a commercial class Kubernetes implementation and be happy. Now that's the dumb sales reps context on all that. Then I stop right there and I call one of you guys. Fair? Like, you know, that's my limit. So that's my context on it, right?
I love it. Thank you for that, Daniel. Thank you. All right, so it's 11:30 right now. So as promised, keep this the efficient 30 minutes. I know everyone's got a bunch of calls, so I appreciate people taking the time. Feel free though, like really the goal of this is to kind of spark the conversation, get everyone thinking about some topics that might be relevant to their customer base. And then please do circle back with Dion and myself. We want to help you guys put together campaigns and be relevant to your guys' customers and ultimately grow the partnership. So with that, good on my end. Emma, any closing thoughts on your side?
Well, if there's any additional questions that come up, if anyone wants to get more granular into what we're doing out there and the different functionalities and capabilities that we built into it, feel free to reach out. More than happy to set up a conversation and go into more details with you or with any of your customers out there.
Awesome. Thank you, Emmett. Thank you, everyone,
Thank you.
for joining.
Yep, thanks for taking the time, everyone.